some of these rumors that have been kind of wiggling around, a little bit. Bruce Levine, right at the beginning of the weekend, is talking about, well, the Cubs will be in on those conversations for Dylan Cease. A reunion could be in. And people take this two different ways. People either say, okay, they're going to be in on it, or people say they're going to be in on Dylan Cease. So, we're both excited about that possibility, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that time of year, Luke, when the leaves are turning colors. It's Halloween. As you said, it's been nice, but it's been brisk out. The Bears suck. The Bulls and Blackhawks are underway, and the Chicago Cubs are attached to every single name potentially that's going to hit the market in the offseason, even Mickey Mantle. But I think we've been talking about and maybe pining for a guy like Dylan Cease for quite some time, not just because of the old Cubs connection of him coming up through the system and the famous trade that brought him over to the South Side, but again, what we saw from him in the wild card round, that high velocity, the innings, the strikeouts, the age. I mean, Luke, of all these guys that we're going to talk about all offseason long, is he not almost close to a bit of the prototype of what the Chicago Cubs would look for in terms of where he is at the point of his career, the potential that he still has, the ceiling that he can still achieve? And yeah, the Chicago Cubs could be in on it. But again, Luke, at what price? How many years? Are they going to try and short it and give me that short-term deal with the opt-outs, or would they be willing to go 4 or 5 years on a starting pitcher? That is yet to be seen.
Well, and what would be his number, right? Like, how high are the Cubs willing to go on a pitcher? So far, we haven't seen a $200 million pitcher. I don't know if that's what it would take for a long-term deal, but remember that when they traded Eloy and Cease trying to get Quintana, the reason they did it was the cost control and all those things that came with it. Cease is the one they didn't want to trade. They knew all along they were going to trade Eloy Jimenez. That was part of the deal when they saw him in the system. They're like, well, that's sort of redundant. We've got guys. Cease is the one they didn't want to give up. I remember Rick Sutcliffe being like, ooh, they're going to regret this, because he had seen him in Cubs camp and was like, Now, I don't know. Sean, being our resident White Sox expert, might be the better expert on this. I don't know that he's ever fully lived up to the hype that Sox fans thought, right? Like, I think they were kind of hoping he was going to be a hard-throwing Burley, like he was going to be the pitcher of a generation for White Sox fans. And I don't know if he's lived up to that yet, but he sure feels like he's the circle peg in the circle hole for the 2026 Chicago Cubs and beyond. They're, like you said, they're looking for someone that's going to throw hard. They're looking for strikeouts. They got enough guys that pitch to the contact of their really good defense. They need some starters that are just going to, when there are times when you just need to strike guys out, right? Like, and that's what the game has become. Like, the guys that pitch to contact generally aren't as good as the guys that strike out lots of people. I mean, like, that's just a fact. Sean, did he ever live up to it?
Hi, Luke. Yeah, he finished second in Cy Young
in 21, right?
Was it? No, it was
21 or 22.
I think it was 2022.
Yeah.
So that was the time where he really started to separate himself to becoming a strikeout pitcher. It was consistent outings of 9+ strikeouts with his slider. So I still think that he could be a top-end ace. The Burley thing, I don't know about, because he's got incredible spin on his pitches. The one thing I just worry about is he's pitched so much. Like, it's a positive that he's pitched 32 games in every single season since 2021. I also think it might be a negative because he is sort of a thinner, kind of frailer looking player than like a Garrett Crochet.
What would you
mean? There's
to
less tread on the tires.
Less tread.
What would you guys be willing to give up number-wise? Like, if they said, forget the years, this is the highest the number would go on overall package. Is he, are you talking about a $200 million pitcher? I don't know, because it depends on the years and the outs and all those different things. But somebody will overpay for Dylan Cease this offseason. I'm fine if it's the Cubs, because they don't do that with pitchers very often.
Yeah, and the only thing about it is when we talk about the short term, the only thing I can maybe wrap my head around is because he has been healthy, because he has been durable, I could maybe talk myself into a world where Dylan Cease says, I want to do a short term with one more opt-out year and re-enter the market again and see if I can get that big money. The only problem with that is impending labor stoppage, right? You would think he would try and get paid now. And it's funny too, right? Because when we talk about the Cubs, I think a lot of Cubs fans are begging them to pay one player $30 million AAV. And I think what a lot of Cubs fans want this offseason is for them to do it to two different guys. So if you ask me what it was for Dylan Cease on a year-in-year basis, he's at least a $25 million pitcher, in my opinion, at the very least. And I think he's probably going to want a 3 in front of that number. So if you said, so that $200 million, then that at least has to be a 6-year deal. Chicago Cubs don't seem very amenable to that. Now, could you throw a Bregman at him and do a 3 or 4 year with a higher AAV at a $35 million? Sure, you could. But sometimes when you start having these conversations, I'm really curious to see what Dylan Cease's market looks like specifically, because a lot of the other names that were rumored about, a lot of the old names coming back, the Sandy Alcantaras of the world, is maybe the Chicago Cubs trying to do it via trade. Is that maybe more something that's going to be amenable to them because of the cost control? But Luke, to your point, they've said in the past that they just need to spend that money. The question is will the Chicago Cubs spend money on just one player with a $30 million AAV? Just one of them, and let alone Dylan Cease.
Chef Kevin Penner in the chat saying The Athletic this morning estimated 6,187 for Cease. I thought that article was a little bit iffy. Jim Bowden is off his rocker, and he just saw a second baseman and put White Sox next to any second baseman.
He hasn't been accurate the last few years.
But I agree with Kevin that the Cubs just won't go there. But I put together, he's been around 3.5 WAR every season. Typically, it's about $8 million to $9 million per WAR. So I think you could guesstimate around 28 mil per year. That times 6 is around 168. So I mean, 168 to 187 sounds fairish.
I mean, Luke, Luke, what if I said to you really quick, what if we offered him the Yu Darvish deal, which I believe was 4 for 120,
and then opt-outs.
That's where wishful thinking meets reality, right, Luke? Is that the Cubs have offered and signed a player of that time in our lifetime before, and maybe that number is something closer to what the Chicago Cubs could offer.
126 for Darvish.
6 for 187. That's I'm in on it, because in my Cub-athetical going through my head, I think of Steele coming back healthy, which we don't know. I think of Horton doing what he did in the second half, and then I'm like, wow, what if actually Horton was your one, and then you could go with any mixture you want after that, and it could be Cease and Steele and Shota and Boyd, and you're thinking, whoa, now you're talking about the type of rotation you see the Dodgers march out there, guys that can go further into a game, and that you could really have something special in the postseason. Tyone, and then again, I don't want people to forget this. I know it's unlikely the Cubs are going to spend that money, but if they do, at the trade deadline, if you have a wealth of riches and you just don't know what to do with all those starting pitchers, that's when you flip that guy for the other player you might need, whether it's a closer or somebody else, a position player need, or restocking the farm system again. One of the reasons Cease is so great, not outside of his pitching, is he only costs you money, and I don't think the Cubs have wrapped their head around that yet. Do I like some of the other guys that they're talking about? Yes, but they're going to cost you prospect capital. I would rather spend the money, which I have the huge advantage. I'm not saying don't use prospects. I'm just saying in this case, you have an option to use your big advantage over the rest of the division. Money. Go ahead and use the money. This is the spot to do it, and I think he's the right guy to do it on, too. I really do.
We all silly like the mayor.